Now don't get me wrong, guys. We all know I love my KV2. My favorite Tier 6 vehicle. But we all know that the king of Tier 6 is the T-34-85M. Well, today that changes, at least in Skirmishes. In Skirmishes, a new era has come upon us. A new day, an age, where the heavy tank reigns supreme. Let us revel in the glory of our new king. The Dog!
There's
Lord and save!
The Tog is amazing!
The Tog! The T-34-85N, a staple of Tier 6 skirmishes. Now, for those of you who don't know what a Tier 6 skirmish is, it's clan battle 7 versus 7, where you're only allowed to play in Tier 6 vehicles. You know, strategy, individual player skill, all factors that make a difference. But lineups are something that are very important in this game mode. And today I want to discuss something. I am noticing a change in the meta of skirmishes. For the longest time we have seen that the T-34-85M is the cream of the crop of tanks in this format. We have seen that medium tanks have been the ones to lead just the battle in general. The 85M is a staple of modern World of Tanks skirmishes at Tier 6. You've got great frontal hull armor, enough side armor to side scrape. You've got this amazing 85mm, which has just absolutely phenomenal DPM, one of the best DPMs at Tier 6. And it's mobile enough to get into the battle and get where it needs to go. It's just a phenomenally well-rounded tank that's quite unmatched in its class. The Cromwell B, the exact same damage permitted as the 85M, but that mobility is unprecedented. It is able to make maneuvers that the enemy just cannot deal with. It is fast, it is nimble, and it will flank you. And of course, light tanks. There is no better scout at Tier 6 than the Type 64. The best base year range. Combine that with good concealment, phenomenal mobility, and the best DPM of any Tier 6 light tank, and you've got yourself the best light tank at Tier 6. What can I say? Here's the thing. I have done a lot of Tier 6 skirmishes, and I'm seeing change. In an era that has been full of stale, unchanging meta, there is a shining light at the end of the tunnel. I am here today to say the 85M is no longer king. I'm going to show you something very interesting. Now, this is a website called StratSketch. I'll link it in the description of the video if you want to check it out. I'm just going to show you a demonstration of, a Tier 6 skirmish. Obviously, again, 7v7, strategic gameplay where you don't have to rely on random people. In the past, and still for the most part today, most people run 6 medium tanks and 1 light tank. It's very well rounded, it allows you a decent amount of hit points, armor, and more importantly, DPM, allowing you to dish out the damage and being able to move around and make flanking plays and whatnot. Using some hit points, I've kind of averaged out, a hit point total of about 55-10, plus or minus 200, depending on, what variation you got. Some people don't bring all 85Ms, maybe someone has a different light tank, whatever. You're going to have about 5,500 health as a team. For the most part, you're starting the game on equal footing. 5,500 versus 5,500, there's some variation, whatever. Your hit points are equal. All that you have to worry about is the positioning of your vehicles and the player skill of the vehicle. Colored puts their vehicles in a certain spot, but for the most part, as long as your team has an average skill level about equal to each other, it'll be a nice, fair, balanced match. But this is assuming that we are talking about the current meta. I have been seeing this tank show up a lot. There's one clan in particular, but there's a couple others who have started adapting it. I think this is a sign. People have incorporated heavy tanks into their lineups for forever now. Every now and then you see one or two like T-150s, Object 244, KV-2, one or two pop them into the lineup, give yourself a little more weight. Problem is you lose a lot of mobility and you lose damage per minute. But what if there was a heavy tank that had good mobility, good DPM, but still gave you that hit point advantage? That is what I'm here to talk about today. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to the VK3601H, a German heavy tank at tier 6 in the tech tree. Features of this vehicle: it's got 100mm thick frontal plates, just like a Tiger. It's like a Tiger if it had the side plates just, cut off. Now you might be thinking, well, that's not a big deal. It's all flat. Who cares? Well, you should care. You know why? Because of this plate right here. This mid plate is the bane of all existence. Because it doesn't have these rectangular cheeks like the Tiger does, there's less space on the front of the vehicle to hit if it's coming at you angled. Second off, this mid plate catches way more shells than you would think. By goodness, the amount of times that I've hit this mid plate and just absolutely thrown a temper tantrum because the shell just doesn't go through. The angle is too much. The armor is very funky. If you're not being careful, it can cause you some problems. The most important is that this bad boy has 1,200 hit points. This tank has almost 1.5 times the hit points of an 85M, the current gold standard. That means that every 85M matched up against the 3601H has to work 50% harder. It's going to be dealing damage 50% longer than if it were against another 85M. Another key point: for some reason, this thing has an okay power to weight ratio with 50 kilometers an hour top speed. That's more top speed than half the medium tanks at this tier. Throw on a turbocharger, suddenly it's looking kind of scary. 1,200 hit points moving at 50 kilometers an hour on good terrain, albeit. It's just ridiculous, okay? So what happens when you, say, start using VK3601s instead of the 85M? Let's go back to the skirmish. Before, you have about equal hit points. Players just need to be able to outplay the enemy. Positioning needs to be good. Whatever. It's a balanced battle, okay? Maybe the mediums go up to brawl each other over here. The light tanks skirmish out and futz around in the south. Who knows? What happens if we go here? What happens if one team brings PKs instead of 85Ms? Red team starts down on hit points. To make the fight get to the point where they're on even hit points, Red needs to deal 2,300 damage without taking any damage before it becomes, back to a balanced fight. Now, there are ways to mitigate this, but no longer is it just simply, we can engage them and, play better than them. Because Red needs to be, on average, 1.42 times better than green players per player to make up for that difference. Are you going to camp? Are you going to brawl? Brawling is almost suicide because you don't have the hit points. They're just going to melt you. Are you going to try to flank them? The light tanks can still fight each other, but your main force, what are they going to do? The heavy tanks, all they got to do is stick together, put all their hit points in one big pile and push, Say you choose to camp, right? You got a couple people here, just kind of preparing for all sorts of scenarios. Heavy tanks, they're probably going to come, in this way. Sometimes they may choose to go straight through this middle area here, or they may just choose to pump in the south. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to be here. They're going to be pushing through the city. You got this camp set up, you're trying to set up for a crossfire. Optimally, you want them to be here. You want this. You want them to push through this middle area here. But they don't care. They have the hit points to take it. When do they get shot at? They get shot here. As soon as they get to this area, these people can shoot them, these people can shoot them, and then they start getting into rock cover. And they can keep going. Suddenly they're not being able to be shot at from here. They're just being shot at from here. And as they're driving, they can just keep, clicking in this direction. Every now and then they'll hit a shell. Maybe they won't. Who knows? But they got the hit points to just trundle along. They're fast enough that they'll make it in time. They'll make it safely. As long as they're playing their cover right, you know, they're going to be there, and they're going to have most of their hit points still. And then, of course, they're going to push up into here, and they're going to get farmed from this direction. But how much is that going to help when these big guys push up into here, murder this stuff, and then just sit on cap and wait for these guys to try to push into heavy tanks, you know? There's so many hit points, you know? And if they go on the outside, obviously everyone is just screwed because they're gonna obliterate this stuff. They're gonna be able to just come around and do that. Obviously, if they come on the inside here, same difference. They're gonna obliterate. They're just not exposed. Same if they come this way. Same if they go that way. The heavy tanks are just such a threat. There's so many hit points. They've got similar DPM. I think people need to realize that 85Ms aren't gonna cut it anymore. The hit points, they matter too much. Having that, you can't consistently depend on your players to be 1.42 times better than the enemy to make up for this hit point difference. It's unfair to your players. It's unfair to your strategists to try to make a strategy that's 1.42 times better than the enemies, you know? Sure, you can flank them. Sure, if you get a wide open map, you know, that's going to be nice for you. You're going to be able to maybe farm them. But if they just push you, what are you going to do? They have enough hit points to survive. The angles are dumb on the vehicle, so it can bounce stuff very sillily. The meta is changing. This tank is single-handedly changing the meta. And unless we find something that's going to allow us a degree of flexibility while also giving us a counter to this amount of hit points, we're just going to have heavy tank on heavy tank battles anymore. Sure, we need the light tank to be able to scout. And sure, the heavy tank still have to have a degree of mobility. But the 36 zone 1H is the new 85M. That is, in my opinion, the hard, cold truth. Damage per minute. Look at how close these are. Just look at how close they are. 2166, 1995, you know, that's a fair chunk away. That's like 180 DPM away. Suddenly you're getting closer. And I know what you might say, you know, DPM. The DPM is going to make a big difference. And yes, you're not wrong. But is it going to be 1.42 times the difference? No, because it's not 1.42 times the DPM. You're getting an extra degree of gun oppression with the 3601H. That's slightly more flexible. Obviously, you're a little slower. Your terrain resistances are way worse. You're a heavy tank. What happens if you throw a turbocharger on here? What happens if you have improved grousers on here? And the biggest thing, this is a tech tree vehicle. This isn't something you have to or buy gold for to purchase this vehicle. Sure, it isn't going to earn you extra credits. Sure, it's not going to get bonus crew experience. But you know what it is going to do? It's going to win. 1 for 1, it's going to win. There's nothing the 85M can do. So what is Mr. Charmeleon's final opinion? In this day and age, try running at 3601H. If you have people in your clan, run a lineup with these instead of medium tanks for once. Just see how you like it. Don't think. Stick them all together and push. Well, you do want to think. Let me clarify. Don't be stupid. But bad teams can beat good teams because the good teams aren't 1.4 times better. This tank is a balance breaker. If you feel like your calls are missing something, if you feel like some of your players aren't up to snuff, give this tank a try. I promise you'll be surprised. You will see improvements in wins. The age of the 85M is over. The age of the VK3601H is here. And the sooner we accept that, the sooner your clan will move up in the rankings. That is all from me, guys. Thank you for watching this video so much. I appreciate every one of you. Leave a comment down below. If you like the content, give me a follow. Anyway, guys, have a wonderful night. Peace out.